What's up, everybody? My name is Isaac Huss, and today I'm going to talk about how you can have a great first date. If you want to know how weird I am, I actually love first dates. It's just something about sitting down with a perfect stranger, an attractive perfect stranger, and trying to figure out how I can genuinely enjoy myself. But more importantly, how she can genuinely enjoy herself. It's a fun challenge for me. A rush, even. Maybe it's the risk involved, because believe me, when it goes wrong, it can go wrong. But maybe more so the reward involved. Because think about it. If you do it right, this could be the last first date you'll ever need. And how awesome is that? Love them or hate them, first dates can be a real challenge. Especially if it's someone you've never met before. In fact, I'm convinced that a first date from an online dating app, or even from an introduction from a friend, if that's the first time you're ever meeting somebody, you should treat that date fundamentally differently than any other date. In fact, don't even call it a first date. Call it something more like date zero. The whole point is, if a picture is worth 1,000 words, meeting someone in real life, even for a few passing moments, is worth immeasurably more data points. And it seems to me going into a date without even that means you should approach this thing dramatically differently. How? Well, as far as I can tell, you just want to try to take the pressure off as much as possible, even while keeping intentions high. So with that in mind, here's my advice for how to make that first meeting a successful one. Step one is setting realistic expectations. If you're anything like me, you're a romantic, and you tend towards thinking, yeah, this will be my last first date I'll ever need. But I'm also a realist at the same time, strangely enough. In fact, I'll even go so far as to literally think about how this date could go terribly wrong. What if she's a narcissist? What if she's a catfish? What if she's a Yankees fan? That might be a little extreme, but I would recommend that you go out of your way to temper your expectations, and to do that for two particular reasons. First of all, for your own sake. Let's be honest, life's too short to be completely devastated by a bad first date. There'll be plenty of other options, believe me. But secondly, and perhaps more importantly, you having unrealistic expectations could hurt your impression of this person sitting across from you. In fact, your expectations could negatively affect your impression of them, even though they might be really awesome, just not, and actually probably not, in the way you expected them to be. If you really think about it, what do you really know before meeting somebody? Maybe you know that they're good at making a dating profile or a social profile. Maybe you know that they're good at texting. Maybe you have a mutual friend, sure. But real chemistry comes in real life. That said, I do not recommend you go on a date that you're not actually excited about. So to me, the happy medium comes somewhere in between expecting the worst and hoping for the best. Or perhaps a less crude way of putting it, have low investment but high intentions. Let's unpack those two. By investment, I mean in three ways: money, time, and emotions. Take care to plan a date that won't be too expensive, that won't be too demanding on your time, particularly your valuable time, and that you won't be emotionally invested in beforehand. Most of us know that you shouldn't be inviting a perfect stranger to a family gathering, regardless of how excited you are to meet them. And most of us won't be buying diamond rings to give to somebody on a first date. These are good instincts, and I encourage you to tap into those instincts as you're planning even a shorter, more normal date. I'm a big fan of happy hour, personally. To me, it hits all the points. It's typically relatively cheap. The time is a temporary time in between typically work and dinner. And thirdly, the stakes are typically pretty low, both in the casual atmosphere and also what you might expect to come out of a first date. So keep investment low, but keep intentions high. So let's talk about the intentions part of it. Sure, it'd be comfortable and convenient to just invite somebody to meet you at your typical haunt, whether it be a coffee shop or a local bar or restaurant. But I'd encourage you to do 5 minutes of Googling and find out what are the cool hip spots in town that you may or may not have already tried. Pick a spot that's relatively convenient for both of you and go and try something new. Try a unique appetizer or a drink that you've heard of but never tried before. The way I see it, if all else goes wrong, you get to scout out a new place. And frankly, I've had bad dates that still couldn't spoil a new restaurant or bar that I really like. And if all goes well, all those things work in your favor to build on a new relationship. Another way to be highly intentional about this first meeting is to show up early. Personally, I've struggled with punctuality for most of my life. And so I do try to go out of my way to be early to a first meeting, even if it doesn't come natural to me, and especially because it doesn't come naturally to me. But I also find that showing up early helps to put myself at ease. I'm more comfortable when I can go inside, scope out the place, find a good spot at the bar, maybe even use the restroom first and check my hair. But putting myself at ease only helps to make me more present to the conversation we're about to have. Speaking of conversation, I recommend going into the conversation with a few data points, let's say, of things that you want to come away with. Now, that being said, this should not feel like an interrogation or even an interview, but you should be intentional about your conversation. Even though I'll admit when I'm on a first date, the best conversations to me are free-flowing, and you can talk about anything and everything without feeling the need to hit all of the top 20 questions, if you will. That said, there should be some intentionality to your conversation. And especially if things go stale or get a little quiet, you want to have a couple of questions to ask or topics to broach in your back pocket just in case. I'll typically try to review the messages that I've shared with somebody, and if it's an online date, I'll even go back and go through the profile again just to see what information has already been shared, what sort of gaps in my impression of this person I want to fill in on this date. And it's just nice to be able to follow up on these conversations we've already had. Make sure there's a give and take to the conversation as well. When people get nervous, myself included, perhaps you, some of us end up talking more than usual. Some of us end up talking less, even if that's not a total reflection of how we are normally, whether we're an introvert or an extrovert or what have you. That's why I try to pay attention to how much conversation is happening one-sided, and maybe that means I need to follow up with more questions to have her talk more about herself. Or sometimes it's even helpful to interject with something. Even if it might feel like an interruption, it can help put someone else at ease when they realize they don't have to be talking the whole time. And be complimentary in conversation. I try to compliment my date almost immediately, like right when she walks in the door. Something like, "Wow, you look beautiful today." But positive reinforcement throughout the conversation can really help to keep the energy up while also to continue expressing your interest. As for physical affection, this can be one of the trickiest things about meeting somebody for the first time. And if unsolicited for that reason, I would recommend keeping it to what you would do with your friend's grandmother. Like a quick hand on the arm during conversation every once in a while. Don't worry, your date will likely let you know if he or she is comfortable with anything more than that. Then, have an exit plan and stick to it. Think of this first meeting as a big hearty meal where you'll probably be served more than you need. And there might not be an obvious stopping point. So it's up to you to find the stopping point before it becomes too obvious that you need to. Think of that second date as dessert. If you linger too long at the first one, you might spoil your appetite, or your date's appetite, for more. If you're going to happy hour, make plans ahead of time with a friend to do dinner, so then you have an obvious reason to be leaving the date that doesn't seem like you just want to leave. Even if you don't actually have plans for dinner, you could even just say, "Oh yeah, I better get going. I gotta check in with so-and-so about dinner plans." Whatever you do, don't come up with some sort of weird lie or story, and don't go in without a plan, which can lead to weird lies or stories. Always end the date on a high note, even if you're not sure about your intentions for a second date, and never lie about them. Always say thank you, even if all you're thanking them for is the time that they took out of their day to meet you. You can always say something like, "It was nice meeting you. I enjoyed our time together. Have a nice evening," if you want to leave it somewhat ambiguous at the end of the evening. If you do want to express that you'd like to see somebody again, you could say something simple like, "I'd love to do this again sometime." Or if you really want to see somebody again, you could say something like, "I'd love to see you again sometime soon." Finally, and especially if you're online dating, chances are you've got other options, or at least potential options. But the best time to evaluate a date is immediately after. Make sure you give yourself some time and space to really reflect upon what happened. I'd recommend giving at least the drive home before you run off and message a new love interest or go back to start searching. So that's all I got for you today. But again, this is only meant to be the beginning of the conversation. Did you agree with my points or disagree? Anything I left out? Any advice you would give to a friend or family member who is meeting somebody for the very first time? Any constructive feedback you've received in your experience? I'd love to hear all of it. That's what that comment section below is for. And if you liked the video, please hit that like button. Subscribe so you can see more coming down the pike. And thanks for watching, and look forward to seeing you again soon.